Hey, everybody. Got two people in here already. Perfect. So I'll go ahead and drop an emoji in the chat and just say hi, everybody. Thanks for joining. So once again, 2 weeks in a row, I actually did it. I actually did something 2 weeks in a row for the show, and I'm really excited. Recently, to be honest, I just got reinvigorated with the show. I really enjoy doing this. I really enjoy the fact that I have the opportunity to do this, and I did something cool today at work. At some point, I will share the flyer that was made. But I work for a utility company, and we have a Native American engagement group, like an employee engagement group. And I was asked to do a presentation on Native film representation for Indigenous Peoples Day, and I did it today. So that was awesome. I was at work. I got paid. I mean, I was off today, but I got paid to talk about what I do here. I have a presentation that I've developed and I give to colleges from time to time whenever I'm asked to guest speak. And so I gave that presentation. It's a series of really just talking about representation from when the cinematograph was first created. And one of the first things they wanted to shoot was Indians. They shot the buffalo dance in a Wild West in a Buffalo Bill Wild West show all the way until present day where you have reservation dogs, but really how Hollywood tore down who the Indians were, who Native people were, and you couple that with what the United States government was doing with boarding schools, residential schools at the time, and you couple, and then so you come in parallel, you have Hollywood trying to create the Native image. Since it was torn down, they can make it into whatever they wanted it to be, and that's essentially the presentation is going over facts and data, showing it in clips and films that demonstrate how that image was built up, and also why it's problematic for Native people to see themselves misrepresented. And I reference I think I've mentioned it before, I definitely have in the show, the American Psychological Association. In 2011, they wrote an article, or rather they published an article stating that they wanted to renounce essentially native mascots, and they cited that it was damaging to self-efficacy for youth. It was damaging for ethnic relations, or like relations between different ethnic groups. It furthers discrimination for Native people, and it furthers the misrepresentation for those people that have little to no contact with Native people. And I thought that was the most interesting thing today in my conversation was when Native mascots came up. People were like, "Oh, I guess it does make sense because my company where I work at, most of us at least know some Native people. We're in the Southwest. There are 22 different tribes in the state of Arizona, federally recognized anyway. And I think there's a lot of people in my company and just in Arizona in general who have met Native people, who know Native people, and I think that a mascot might not necessarily change their perception of who Native people are. Not to say there's not ignorance. I am not saying that at all. There's plenty of ignorance in Arizona when it comes to Native people. But I think at least the people that were in the room that I was giving the talk to today, they could see it. You could see with some of them the light bulb go off of like, I never thought of it that way. One of them was really adamant about the Kansas City Chiefs, and they really saw it. And another was a Atlanta Braves fan, and they got to understand a little bit better the perspective when you back up what the American Psychological Association was saying. And they were like, "Yeah, it does. It is problematic." Now that you displayed how the tomahawk chop was originated and how it's really influenced by what the Hollywood Indian is, and it's a very problematic thing when you look at it from that lens. You're like, "Oh wow, it's not just some made up thing out of thin air. Like it's all influenced by Hollywood's idea of commercializing the Indian, tearing down this identity and creating one that you can commercialize and you can make it popular in John Ford westerns." And I thought that was a really good discussion. There was a lot of engagement around that part. So at some point, I don't know what I'm going to do with that presentation, but I do give that talk to colleges. from time to time, and I wouldn't mind giving it to just a community. Uh, so feel free, anybody out there listening, if you need someone to, hey, come give an hour-long conversation, Q&A, showing some clips at the same time, making it really engagement heavy and talking with the audience. I'm your guy. I got an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, however much time you want to give me. I'll come and talk to your group. Today there was only 12, 15, like 17ish. I've given that talk to as many as 100. So I do not care how big. It could even just be three of us, honestly. Even if you wanted to hit me up and have a conversation, and I can give that presentation. Honestly, I just love this so much, and the fact that I did it at work just just blew my mind. I could not believe it, honestly. And it came full circle because I never thought I told myself I would hide it from work. I would never tell people at work what I do, what I did in my with my free time. And somehow it came out eventually, and people found out. People at work knew. Native people at work knew, and they just brought it up like, "Hey, you should give your presentation. You should give your presentation. You should talk about Native film." And it happened today. So here we are. I was pretty excited about that. Um, I wasn't nervous. I thought I was going to be nervous, honestly, talking to people I work with. Well, some people I work with, and I got one of the best compliments I probably could have, and I'm still trying to figure out how to process it. But the presentation at work today went really well, in my opinion. One of my coworkers sent me a message afterwards and said that you are out of your element. Speaking about work, what you do at work, that's not who you are. What I saw today in that hour that you presented, like that's who you are. And in so many words, she told me, find a way to do that. Like leave this job, leave this company, find a way to do what you did today because clearly that's what you want to do. And I really appreciated that coming from somebody I work with, especially when did not want to give this presentation to work at all. uh, I was nervous. I don't know what I was nervous for. I was scared. I think what people would think, like, oh, he's talking about native stuff, because it's predominantly non-native, the workforce. So I was really worried what people would think. I have no idea why, because you could make the argument I have a bigger platform with the podcast because it's technically global. Anyone can download it. I have downloads in Pakistan, for crying out loud. But when it comes to work, it's people I could potentially run into. It could potentially affect my career, I guess. But today, that just reinforced the idea that you need to have these conversations everywhere regarding Native representation, regarding how important this stuff is. It's not just stuff, it's not just leftist, it's not woke. All of this really matters. It matters because you have a history of misrepresentation that have created this image of who Native people are to non natives. And it's important for us, Native people, to correct people. And I think correct is a strong word. I'm not an antagonist when it comes to this kind of stuff. I think it's really educate is a better word. It's our job to educate. It is exhausting. It shouldn't be our job. But when it does go well, like today, they're not always going to go well, but today at work, some of my interactions, the light bulb went off with some people and I'm like, "Man, I haven't had that in-person interaction with someone in a long time." And it was badass, to be honest. So, we're 10 minutes into this live stream. Drop a question, drop a comment if you would like, but I have a few things I want to talk about. But the first one being, I had fun today. Giving a talk to my job, to my work, having a coworker come up to me and say, "What you do in your day-to-day working in supply chain, this is not it for you. What you did today for that hour, that's it. Go find a way to do that." And so I couldn't wait to get on today, honestly. I gave that talk at 10:30. It ended at 11:30 and I'm like, "How many more hours do I have to the live stream? Oh my god, I can't wait to talk about that." Cuz that I don't know what that did, but that really just made me feel good. So, I got some upcoming ideas for episodes. So I did watch some films recently. I watched episode 1 of season 2 of Dark Winds. I'll talk about that after I mention my upcoming episode ideas. Slashback. If anyone has not seen Slashback, highly recommend you go see Slashback. It's one of those that once you have seen it, it's not a movie that I'm gonna go back to the well and I'm gonna keep watching it. It's an interesting movie. It's thought provoking, honestly. The fact that it showcases native girls as the heroes, that in itself is badass. I highly recommend you go see Slashback just for that. To have native girls be the forefront, be the protagonist, be the hero, and just changing the narrative on who native women are in film. I couldn't recommend that one more. As I said before, I don't see it as being a rewatchable very much. In my opinion, I'm not really into the I don't know what genre I would call that. Kind of like horror suspense, I guess. Not even horror. I would say thriller suspense. I'm normally a thriller fan, but this particular one, I'll watch it again eventually when I do an episode on it. And that's not a knock on it. I think once the mystique is gone, the mystery is gone, it's a little different. But man, just that first watch through, I'm like, how did it take so long to make a movie like this? But I really enjoyed it. Res Dogs recap. I want to do a Res Dogs recap, not just of the entire show. I know I blew it on season two. I started doing an episode by episode review, and I just stopped. And I want to do a season two review and then a season three slash entire series review, and that's coming. My collaboration with Patrick on his YouTube channel, Indigenous Talk, that really just helped me a lot, honestly, to feel like I need to do this because taking it out of my hands of the labor of the editing and setting things up and planning and just showing up and pushing go, pushing record and going, that helped me tremendously. Moving forward, I realized I just need to get off my ass and just do it. And that's why I'm here. That's why I'm at a live stream. This stuff keeps the momentum rolling, in my opinion. It's like keeping a hitting streak going. It's like you just got to keep somehow find a way. Even if you leg out single, infield single, you got to find a way to just get it done. After I do my very next episode, I want to talk about though before October is over is my favorite Halloween bad native tropes. I feel like everyone knows if you're like in native film, you watch native film a lot, like you know about the Indian burial grounds and um there's a handful of other tropes, but I just want to talk about them. Just talk about it. Just put it on a recording, put it on an episode and just put it out there to say, "Hey, I did it." I think that's something that I took for granted in doing while I've been gone. I had been doing presentations. I did mention that I did do I give talks to college classes, and that helped keep some of my enthusiasm alive. But also, it made me realize what I consider like basic, like people already know this. People don't know this. I think I was in an echo chamber of just other people that were so enthusiastic about native representation that things just seem common knowledge to me. I forget that people don't know a whole lot about native film. Maybe they've seen movies with like Wes Studi or maybe movies with Gary Farmer, but they might not know their names off the top of their head. To me, that's like, oh, Graham Greene, Wes Studi, Gary Farmer. Those are like Irene Bedard. Well, really, maybe take her off, but Tantu Cardinal. You put them all, it's like your Mount Rushmore of like the OGs. But to me, that's like easy. But to other individuals, they're like, oh, what movies were they in again? And what's Dead Man? I've never heard of that movie. Oh, Johnny Depp was in there with him, and so I think that's what I want to do with favorite Halloween bad native tropes is just talk about it and just say, hey, if you're curious, here's some movies you can go watch. Poltergeist 2. Go see Will Sampson and Chin Lee at Spider Rock. That hilarious. But anyway, Echo review. Whenever Echo, I'm going to be very honest. I am not excited for Echo at all. I'm going to start watching Echo. If I don't make it through the episodes and if I don't enjoy it, I might try to just do an episode, like a 15-10 minute episode where I'm just like, I did not like Echo. Made it through 3 episodes. Sorry, people. That's as far as I could go. But I'm not looking forward to it. I think just where Marvel is at, Disney Marvel, with producing their television shows, I don't know what they're chasing, but they're chasing something. And it's not, they're chasing something that's gone. Put it that way. I'm not a big fan of what they're producing right now. Outside of Loki, To be honest, there isn't a whole lot of good there. So I'm not very excited about Echo. Avatar 1 and 2, I saw Avatar 2 and god, it was just I don't know what happened. Avatar 1 captured me. I was hooked. I didn't see I when I first saw it, I was in I don't know, high school? Is that right? Maybe I was in college? When I first saw it with my brother, had to be high school. I saw it with my brother. When it was done, me and him both looked at each other and like that was basically like the last samurai, right? That was basically like Dances with Wolves. And we knew it at the time. We didn't know what a white savior trope was. We didn't understand that. But when we saw Avatar, we both knew like that wasn't the story wasn't that great because we immediately were like that felt like because Tom Cruise's The Last Samurai had just came out a couple years prior. So that was the reference that was fresh in my mind. But I'm like, that was just basically The Last Samurai, but looked awesome. But I went back and watched it again and watched it 2 or 3 times because I'd never seen anything like that. And then I saw The Way of Water, and man, it took me no joke like 4 attempts to get through. I just I just couldn't. Maybe it's because I didn't see it in a theater and the visual effects experience that I was supposed to have just wasn't there. And it was a 3-hour movie. I just was like, man, I can't do it. And when I finally did watch it, it was just meh, meh. And the fact that I don't know, just the indigenous representation throughout there, that they just took a little bit from all these different people and made this fictional world, but it wasn't even done in a way that was thought out like Avatar: The Last Airbender. When you have fictional indigenous representation, where you take these ideas of cultures, uh, and you almost create them own, but you have a strong, at least maybe not strong, but you have a good foundation of your understanding of those cultures. So when you're building out your worldview, their worldview, and you're building out their mindset and ideology, it tracks. In Avatar: The Way of the Water, I don't know what the hell they were doing at times, and I think it's be fun to talk about someday. And Dark Winds, man, episode 1. I'll tell you, I'll be very honest, it's entertaining. But as a Navajo person, and this is an unfair critique to me because they're trying. Zon McLaren, Kiowa Gordon, they're trying. They're honestly giving it an honest effort. But to me, the show would be better if they just didn't speak Navajo, period. Even among Navajo speakers, I don't know what is driving that need for having the language authenticity there, but it's not there. It's just it doesn't feel genuine. And I don't know if it's because I'm Navajo and they're speaking my native language and it doesn't feel like it's organic. It doesn't when I'm watching it, it just I came from the res. I was there all weekend with my family, my Che, my Masane, and my mom and my son. And it just the way that they interacted with each other and dropped random Navajo phrases, the way they do it in Dark Winds, it just feels like, hey, it's been 15 lines since we've dropped a Navajo sentence. We should probably drop some Salt Bay, some Navajo words in there. I just don't like it if I'm being honest. But the show is solid. I mean, you got some great names behind it. You got George R. Martin behind it. You got Zon McLaren in it. You got Kiowa Gordon in it. If you notice, none of my issues are with their performance or with the some of the writing is I don't know. I think it just goes back to me at the very beginning of Dark Winds. It's just me not wanting to like it, and that's it. That's why I think it's an unfair critique because of Tony Hillerman. I feel like he poached Navajo stories for profit, never gave credit, never intended to give credit, found an opportunity to very much like Taylor Sheridan it go in and profit where he sees a void and use his skin color and use his uh, place of privilege to hijack native stories. And he recognizes there's a void because nobody's telling native stories. And hey, let's go ahead and fill this void with something I want to do. Something will make me money. And I think I just can't get past that. I think honestly, so it might be it's unfair for me to critique Dark Winds as harsh as I do, but as a Navajo person, I just can't get around it. to be honest. I just think they should just strip Navajo speaking from the whole series and just lean into English speaking and be done with it. I'm good with it. There doesn't need to be Navajo spoken in Dark Winds, in my opinion. I'll leave it at that. And let's see. Let's move on to something else that was brought up in the show in my talk today at work. Spirit Rangers. I was surprised how many people brought up Spirit Rangers. I think it's just the availability of Netflix. If you all remember, I was at the Spirit Rangers launch party. I was invited by Joey Clift. Shout out to Joey. And when I saw the first two episodes there, I'm like, man, this is going to be awesome. I just hope people see it. I was a little concerned that people wouldn't see it just because it was native, but there were non-native people in the audience today that knew about Spirit Rangers. I can't say whether or not they saw it, but they at least knew about Spirit Rangers. I was really excited about that. I As I mentioned before, I'm in this echo chamber of native representation where the people that I'm talking to and conversing with on a regular basis, we all have kind of seen the same shit, and we're talking about the same movies that we've seen, the actors, and we're on par for the most part with a level of understanding and exposure of native representation. But today I got a mix, and it was great to see where casual viewers are and people who don't even care about native representation are. So there's one episode idea I left off that I want to talk about. I want to do an episode on No Hard Feelings, the movie with J Law with Jennifer Lawrence, because Zon McClarnon is in there. If you have not seen No Hard Feelings, go watch No Hard Feelings. Zon is only in, I want to say, like the first 20 or 30 minutes of it. Once you hit the first 20, 30 minutes of No Hard Feelings, and if all you care about is like, hey, Zon McClarnon's in it, you can stop watching after that. But Zon McClarnon is just this like surfer bum who is a native, native and clearly native because there's a few native jokes directed at, or I should say, delivered by him. But it's very much in the around the idea that hey, you're talking to a native person, Jennifer Lawrence. So go watch No Hard Feelings. I think I'm gonna do an episode on that just because, and I wouldn't mind watching No Hard Feelings again. Yeah, it was good. We're at 22 minutes here. I don't have any questions in the chat right now. Oh, one person mentioned, I'm jealous of this generation of native kids. Absolutely. I'm in my mid 30s and I can't imagine what my kids are like. Yeah, I got a 4 and a 2-year old. They're going to grow up in a world where none of the crap that I went through in terms of native representation of just like clinging on to whatever was close enough. You're always going to have that because you're going to go through a period where you're just wondering, who am I? What am I? What's my identity? Where do I fit? I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about when you watching a movie, you're seeing what's fed to you by media, and who are you? And you don't have to. I pray that my kids don't have to chop themselves down to like build themselves back up and figure out who they are. And I feel like I had to do that. I feel like my wife had to do that. I feel like there's just people, peers, people my age had to do that. We had to like chop down this image of ourselves and then build it back up to be able to not just quarrel internally with our native identity. For those of us that left anyway. Um and not to say by staying you don't have that issue, but I just think that there's a common thread when you leave the res and then try to find yourself while you're away from the res to figure out who am I, what am I, where do I fit. So hopefully my kids don't have to go through that. And but honestly, sometimes I wonder, do you need that? I don't know if that's like survivorship bias or what. I don't know. I don't know if that's the right term, but I don't know. So someone had a question. Um, just got here. How do you think the casual native audience will react to or handle Killers of the Flower Moon? 3.5 hour runtime. My dad's already like, that's too long. I'll wait till it releases. Bro, I'm in your dad's camp. I am not looking forward to a 3.5 hour movie. That's why it took me 4 times to watch Avatar Way of Water. You know how long that freaking movie is? I'm like, this better be good in a hurry, like from the jump. Otherwise, I'm out. I am not watching this movie. So Killers better be good. I really think that Scorsese can be a little. I don't know if it was Scorsese or Tarantino made a comment. No, no, no. It was James Cameron was just like, I don't want to hear your bitching about a 3.5 hour movie because I've seen my kids sit there and binge watch a 30 minute, like 10 episodes of a 30 minute season of whatever, and that equates to 6 hours. I don't want to hear you complaining about that. But that's a false equivalency. You can't make that connection. Those two things are not I don't know, copacetic. I haven't heard that word in ages. They're not. They don't mesh. So I think it's going to be a problem for a lot of viewers. If you are not a Scorsese, Leo, De Niro fan, I think it's going to be difficult for you to reconcile the fact that, especially if you got kids, especially if you need a sitter, hey, I'm going to go take off and go watch this 3.5 hour movie in the theater. I think a lot of people are going to wait for it to come to VOD, video on demand. And I'm curious. I really think it's difficult these days to make a 3.5 hour movie, which I'm not complaining about. I think 100 minutes used to be a long time for a runtime for a movie, and then we just went the other directions. The other direction. I remember as a kid, we used to have like two VHS tapes. That's when you knew, like, holy shit, this is a long movie. I think Dances with Wolves had two VHS tapes. Titanic had two. Lord of the Rings had like three of them, and we just went nuts with it. And I think thankfully we're coming back to the mean a little bit, somewhere around 90 minutes, 100 minutes. I hope we get closer to that. And I think it will deter some people. Just look at his last movie, the or not his I think it was 2 movies ago, but The Irishman. I still couldn't get through The Irishman. That thing was almost 4 hours long. It was over three and a half, but I was too long. My brother, who is a mediophile, loves film. His film knowledge is expansive. He is ridiculous. He's a ridiculous mind when it comes to film. My brother even thought it was a tad too long. But I don't know. I'm still excited to watch it though, just because it is natives. I will get it out for sure. I think that with Killers, it'll find a way. I think if you're interested in the story, you want to see resolution, you read the book, you're gonna sit through it. It's Leo. At the same time, it is Leo, another Leo Scorsese movie. I'm excited for it. I'm just not looking forward to sit there for 3.5 hours. Have you heard of the comic Earth Divers by Stephen Graham Jones? I have not. I'm not a comic book person in any sense of the word, so I apologize if that is like available. That's a very very common thing. Someone also made a comment. I don't mind long movies like The Godfather or the Justice League Snyder Cut as long as they're good. Man, you shouldn't have put The Godfather and the Snyder Cut in the same sentence when you're talking about is it good or not. I just hope Killers of the Flower Moon handles the history with respect and dignity. So I agree. I agree with you that I've heard positive things. I'll say that much. There's an individual's name. Apparently, was a former chief of the Osage Nation. I did not fact check it. He could just be self-proclaimed former chief. But on Twitter X, he did say his family because the individual who was killed that kicked off the FBI investigation. He's a descendant of that, and his family got a early screening of the film, and he was very impressed. When there was a bidding war apparently in 2017-18 for the rights to the screenplay, to the rights to make this movie, and Scorsese won it. At that time, I think there was a lot of anxiety around what this was going to look like because it's like, well, you're bidding for this thing. What is it going to look like? Whose hands is it going to land on? And apparently Scorsese is doing a bang up job in terms of inclusion, in terms of stopping and pulling off and saying, "Hey, is this respectful? Is this accurate?" It's still a non-native guy writing it. It's still a non-native guy directing it. It's still a non-native lead. It still is non-native written source material, the book itself. But I think there is a right way to go about this, and it sounds like Scorsese is doing as best of a job as he can, and I want it to be good, honestly, because of Lily Gladstone. I want the fact that like her and Leo are having like photo shoots together, and people are saying, "Look at this gorgeous Native woman. Look at her like playing this amazing role next to Leo, potentially getting Best Actress consideration, even though she's in supporting actress category right now." I really hope it does well, and I really hope the representation is great. It's respectful, and I really hope that I'm just hoping for the best. I'll put it that way. Now the question is: are there any other shows you would recommend that have the same vibe as Reservation Dogs? Honestly, man, that's I don't know. Sorry, I don't know if it's a man or woman. Sorry, person. I don't know if there is another show that has the same vibes as Reservation Dogs. Maybe Atlanta, if you're into the FX shows. Atlanta is a good recommendation. Please drop a comment in the chat for the person who just asked that one. Are there any other shows you'd recommend that have the same vibes as Res Dogs? First thing I thought of was Atlanta when I first started watching Res Dogs from the first couple episodes. Highly recommend you go check that out. It's got Childish Gambino, aka Donald Glover, in it, and I'm a big fan of his. It's not exactly the same vibe, but I'd recommend Mohawk Girls if you like Reservation Dogs. So I've never seen Mohawk Girls. Shame on me. I strongly recommend Mohawk Girls though, just because you'll have some of the same people that you've seen in Reservation Dogs in Mohawk Girls. Strongly recommend you go see Mohawk Girls. I need to get around to that one for sure. That's a I don't know, sitcom, is that the right word? Got another question here. Are there any upcoming native shows or movies that you're looking forward to? I don't know if this is like Jeanette news or it's real, but I heard that Tommy Orange's There was going to be picked up and become an adapted screenplay. If that's the case, I really hope that's true. That would be awesome. Tommy Orange There was a Pulitzer Prize finalist. So I really hope that that rumor is true. That would be cool. In terms of everything else, I think that Rezball that's been kicked around for a while. Um, LeBron James is executive producer. Sterling Harjo is involved in that as well. I'm really excited for that. I don't know what that's going to look like. Honestly, I've heard what it's about, and it just seems like a very bland script. Not a bland script, but just a basic storyline. But Res Dog sounds like a basic storyline too. If you pitch it to me, I'm like, what do I want to see four Res kids just live their life on the Res for? And then they just blow me away. So Res Ball, I'm excited for. And the Tommy Orange there rumor, I don't know if that's a rumor. That might be substantiated, and I'm just not up to speed on that. Apologies. Let's go ahead and look this up right now. I would hate to look something up. Hmm. Yeah, it's okay. We'll figure it out. I'm trying to think. Is there anything else I'm excited to see? I don't think so. I think those are my big ones that have not come out yet. That have not come out. I think those are really the two big ones. What I'm excited for is whatever Sterling Harjo has next, if I'm being honest. We got a comment here. Were you a Rezballer? Unfortunately, I was not. I was pretty terrible. Or as the kids would say, I was ass. So I played organized basketball through junior high. And then once I got to high school, everyone got bigger, faster, put in work in the summer camps. And I was always the best at being eligible, academically eligible. If you needed someone on your team, they're like, hey, who is never going to be a liability for their grades and who is always going to be willing to tutor the other teammates, I'm your guy. If you want that person on your team, I was your guy every time. Every day that ends in Y, I was your guy. So I was a decent athlete, but not at basketball. I was ass for sure. All right. So I had something cool that I brought up at work today. I had something cool that my grandpa, my Che, gave me. It's G.I. Joe, Navajo Code Talker. This came out when the movie Wind Talkers came out. When I was in junior high, I believe. It showed at Harkins in Flagstaff. And that was the first time I've ever seen natives like pack a theater in a white town. If you've ever been to Flagstaff, it's pretty white. It was more white back then, honestly. But when Wind Talkers came out, you would have thought Lord of the Rings or one of the Harry Potter movies came out. There was a fucking line around the theater, nothing but natives, nothing but Navajos there. And at the same time, this came out. This GI Joe edition, this GI Joe Navajo Code Talker edition. And what the most badass thing about this um, is it still works. Look. Hill 165 secured. Badass. I don't know who makes the voice, but this is a badass toy. Request artillery support. And what's cool is it has what he's saying on the back. If you can look at that right there, it tells you exactly what he's saying. So I showed that. I did like a show and share. My son has show and share at school. I showed that during my, I don't know why. It was in the background, actually. It was sitting on this bookcase and someone noticed it in the talk. So that was pretty cool. And we had another question here. How do you celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day? I don't celebrate it. I don't recognize it, honestly. I think that I'm just happy it's not Columbus Day anymore. It's not something I look on as a day of reverence. Not to say that won't change in the future. That could. As of today, the person who I am right now, I don't recognize it as any other day. I think that if I was on the reservation, there are days like there's Navajo Code Talker Day. We get the day off from school. People get the day off from work. Those days are important to me because you're sitting there with people who it matters to. And as I mentioned before, it's something that at this time I work in a predominantly white space, and it's just not something that resonates with me because it's just coupled with so much education that has to happen with non-native people of like, why isn't it Columbus Day anymore? When I was a kid, when I was back in the good old days, it was Columbus Day, and that just turns me off. So I don't observe it. I'm gonna be honest though, when my kids get older and as Indigenous Peoples Day becomes more prominent, I bet my tune will change. I bet it will change, especially when my kids are asking questions about Indigenous Peoples Day. I will not say that for I think for now, just nothing. Someone said that action figure is very cool. I appreciate that. I'm never gonna, I went to I don't know what you call it, like an action figure. It was like I don't know what you call this thing, a show where it's nothing but toys. I don't know what you call that, but it was a show where people brought their action figures, people brought toys, they brought merchandise, they brought like Pokemon cards, Yu-Gi-Oh cards, Magic the Gathering cards. It was just like a craft, like a hobby kind of festival shop. And there was a guy who had nothing but GI Joes, and he was selling one of these, and it was like $50. I was a little disappointed. It was only $50. I was very disappointed. But probably never going to sell this thing. To be honest, I think it's pretty cool. Let's here one more. Let's hear one more. Request modifier. It's such a badass thing. So I don't want to be like one of my team meetings at work where I'm just droning on for the sake of droning on. There's one last thing I have right here. The Skinsfest lineup. Someone dropped a line in the chat. My ex used to go to shows like that in the 90s. Well, your ex might have been selling there, to be honest with you. There was a lot of interesting individuals. So let's go to Skinsfest. So first off, Skinsfest is definitely the name is not very inviting. my dad, my dad's he's almost 60. But my dad, my whole life, he called native skins. Every time I would go off to somewhere like a basketball camp or an academic camp somewhere, he'd always ask when I call and talk to my mom, and any skins there? Any skins there? He just, I don't know. I guess I was trying to reclaim the Redskins name and try to make it cool. But so anyway, Skins Fest is a film festival, an annual film festival that takes place in Los Angeles, and this is the 12th annual one. I would love to go to Skins Fest someday. It happens the week before. Let me look at my calendar. I think the week before Thanksgiving, if I remember correctly. It starts on November 14th and runs through the weekend. But what I thought was cool, and I never paid attention to it, all of their screenings of their short films that they show are at the Chinese theater. And I went to the Chinese theater when I went to Spirit Rangers launch party because I flew there the afternoon, and then that night I went to the launch party, and then I flew back home to Phoenix the very next day, but it was in the afternoon, so I had a morning to burn. and so I took a cab. Jesus, Ian, I Ubered to I Ubered there from my hotel, and I went to the Chinese theater, and I saw a bunch of paw prints, a bunch of handprints, footprints, and I walked the Walk of Fame, and I was enamored at the Chinese theater. I walked around the Dolby Theater where the Academy Awards are. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, I have to watch a movie here someday. And then I saw at Skinsfest they screen their shorts at the Chinese theater. So goals someday to be able to go to the Skins Festival, Skins Fest. And what I think is cool is it is a days, I think it's 3 days of showing shorts and documentaries, and then it culminates in a Skins Fest award show. And I'm sure there's the regular names that you could think of that would win awards, like Sterling Harjo, I'm sure would win something, maybe like Paulina Alexis and DeFero Wunatai, people that are more prominent now. But I was just thinking 12 years ago, what did that look like? First annual, who's winning awards at Skins Fest? And then it made me think of today, which I think is cool. Who's winning now? Who is the up and coming actors now? Writers, producers. Um, I assume they're doing it for music as well. I think that would be cool to see. But that one was like 150 bucks. I'm not sure if I'm that excited to see it. I'll wait until they publish the results, to be honest. So, Skins Fest, if you did not see it, go check it out. I think there's a ton of awesome shorts that are on there, short films that are native created that range from topics about MMIW, there's sci-fi, there are horror, there's zombies, there's love stories, there's drama, there's everything. And it's not just like pan Indian stuff. There's stuff that's very specific to native tribes from the people who created them. I think it's exciting. I don't know if it's like a typical film festival like Cannes or something where you can get it. I didn't see an option to get digital access, unfortunately. I would love that if Skins Fest could give digital access for someone like me who wishes to attend but can't travel to LA to view the shorts. So Skins Fest, I hope that's on everyone's radar because that's something that is a goal of mine. I'm going to speak it into existence. If I put it out there enough, eventually, I think I'll manifest it into something. Whether that's a family trip with my wife and kids, we all travel out to LA. I think my wife and kids would love that, honestly, and especially in November, the weather's going to be great the week before Thanksgiving. I would love to do that. I think that'd be a great networking opportunity, and it would be a great opportunity to see like 20 to 30 short films by by various native content creators, and just content creators. Like we're all on YouTube. I just think it would be great to see, and I think it would be an awesome networking event for myself. If I'm being honest, I think that's about it, people. One last comment here. John Proudstar's comic Tribal Force dropped a few months ago. Thanks for interviewing him on your show and spotlighting his comic. It's so amazing. Badass. That's awesome. Tribal Force came out. I know John was really excited about Tribal Force getting picked up and potentially getting published. He was awesome. And shouts out to John Proudstar for getting that thing off the ground. He said that's been in the works for years. So um yeah, I'm really excited to check that one out. I don't know. I'm gonna be honest. I'm not a comic person, so I might not check that out. I was talking out my ass just now. I think if I buy one, I'll just like hang it up on my wall. So we'll do that. Um, yeah, I think that's about it. If anybody has any other questions, drop it in the chat. If not, I'm gonna wrap this one up. I really appreciate everyone joining today. I had a lot of fun again. I hope to make this a weekly thing to just chime in, check in, tell everyone what I've seen recently, and field some questions from people. Last week we had, I think, up to a dozen people, and this week we had about the same. So I really appreciate it. So Pat, we got another question here. Has Skins Fest always been this big with so many new releases? I was surprised looking at their lineup. To be honest, I looked last year and this year, and it was like that. I was very impressed. I bet the first annual was probably like in someone's backyard, and they just like showed people's shorts to each other, or maybe like at a hotel somewhere. I don't think it started out at the Chinese theater. but it is very impressive to where it is currently as it stands. So, Pat, sounds like we need to go. You're the one who dropped that comment. Sounds like we need to make a trip to LA, buddy. Go check these movies out. I'm really excited to see some of this stuff. And I think really just to see what's coming down the pike, because these people that are making shorts are people that have already made awesome stuff, to so that way you can find out what else they've made and just continue to pull on that thread and hopefully get some of their work in the mainstream. That's the hope anyway. So I really appreciate everyone's time. Thanks for jumping on live with me. Those of you that observe Indigenous Peoples Day, happy Indigenous Peoples Day. As always, fuck Columbus, and we'll talk to you later.